Well, here's probably one of the, I guess, one of the things that, one of the incidents that I thought that was sort of related. And that was, if you are within a family and you find somebody else that has the same name, but you don't know if you're related. That happens many times to Filipinos. And I've talked to a lot of the people I know of in various groups, and they give me their name, their last name. For instance, Corpus. Says, "Oh, you're a Corpus. Well, we have a Corpus family in San Jose. Do you know them?" "No, we don't know." "Oh, okay." Well, they have no connection. And same thing with, say, "Oh yeah, oh, you're Reclusado. You know, we have the Reclusado that is my uncle on this." I said, "No, we don't know them." Well, that's happened in my family too. So my dad went to Kauai one year with his second wife on a honeymoon. He went to Kauai and he met a Ragsac family, but he did not know their relationship. So when my dad came back from Kauai, my dad, by the way, they call him Sharky, but his real name is Sergio. His naturalized name is Sharky. I hated Sharky, but nevertheless. So he told me about the family there. So the following year, my girlfriend and I went to Kauai on a trip. And I looked in the phone book, and sure enough, there was the Dominador Ragsac. So I called the number. I get the Filipina that answered, and I told her about being a Ragsac, and she said, "Oh, talk to my husband, Dominador." So Dominador gets on the phone, and he's true Filipino. And I said, "Yeah, this guy, he must have just came to the islands." But he said, "Oh, let's meet. He's going to go to his nephew's for dinner, so why don't we come along?" So he went to his nephew's, whose his name is Primo Ragsac. His father is Primo Senior, which is the brother to Dominador. So the two Filipino families there are Dominador Ragsac, Primo Ragsac. So we went to Primo Ragsac's son's house for dinner, and we're talking about the Ragsac's connections, and we're trying to figure out how we're related. So I said, "Well, I have a family tree that I did for my dad, and his brothers, Burnaby and Leoncio. So, and they're all three are from Santa Catalina. Well, they are from Isabela. There's no connection. So we sat down on the dining room floor, and I spread out the family tree, and I went through here. Well, I said, my dad told me when he was a little boy, because I have it marked here, that his uncle, Alejandro Ragsac, moved about 19, when my dad was small, so it had to be like about 1910, 1915 or so. The room got silent, and I look around, and then Uncle Dominador, he's now my uncle, but Dominador at the time says, I got chicken skin, which means his skin was, the hair in the skin. Have you been frightened or something really roused on you, and you feel the hair in your, rise on your arms? Well, in Hawaii, they call it chicken skin. And I said, what? He says, that's his dad. Alejandro Ragsac is his dad. Right away, you can almost feel the family connection get warmer, more closer. And I thought, this is amazing. So when I got back to the mainland, I told them about Uncle Dominador and Uncle Primo, and they were all related. We got to go back. So the following year, the entire Ragsac family here, including my cousins, went to Kauai, and we had a gigantic relationship, a family reunion. Now, something like that could happen if the Corpus and all these others had some connection, some link, so you can cement your relationship and keep alive that name or your family relationships. And I thought that was really important for our family because now when we go to Kauai, we're not tourists. We're coming home with a family. But that could happen with other families. And I think that's important for their for not only the history but their legacy, because their children, like my grandson, my grandsons, my granddaughter, and my sister's grandkids, and their great grandson. My youngest sister has great grandchildren, and their Filipino connection is alive because I have the family tree. So every time we have a family reunion, we have a Ragsac family reunion every year, I update the family tree, and I go through a big speech, and I say, and I make sure that everybody here, and I look around there's Mexican Filipinos, there's a gal dating a black guy, and there's some, I forget, there are whites in the family, but they're Ragsacs. And we've got Mexicans and they're Ragsacs. So I get up every reunion and I hold the family tree and I say, the only reason that we're here is 3 boys from the Philippines decided to migrate to the mainland. Uncle Leo, Leoncio, Uncle Ben, Burnaby, and my dad, Sergio, Sharkey. Because of them, they got married, had children, and that's us. We're here, if only because of them. So I want them to be aware of not only the fact that there's a sequence of historical events that each of those boys decided upon, that we're here. And I look out and I say, there's almost 100 of us, 75 to 80. When we went to the one to reunion in Kauai, there was almost like 75 to 100 of us. So the connection, at least for the mainland, I want to keep alive, so that the mestizo level 3 on the Ragsac side can trace their relationship. So when I gave this talk about mestizos in Seattle, I used a family tree that shows 2 Abigails in our family. Abigail Ragsac, and I put a picture up there, she's white. And there's Abigail Cornish, there's a picture of her. She is really white. But you look at the connection on this chart, and the blood relationship to Santa Catalina, Ilocosur, and La Paz Abra, their Ilocano side is very clear. And I use that as an example when I gave this talk to the audience. And surprisingly, several people came up to me afterward. They said they never thought of that. But they said, we're going to do that. And some came up and say, we do have a family tree, and you're right. You can make that connection because it really works. And I felt really good about that. So was that activism? I don't know. Was that developing community relationships or making sure that our Filipino community is what, at least by families are closer? Maybe so. So I use that as an example when I start thinking about, well, yeah, history detective, yeah, maybe. Historian, nah. Activist, nah. But yeah, maybe so. Not in the true definition of each one of those. It's a really great idea because that family tree that I wrote just before my dad went to Kauai. Just out of a whim. When my sister said, hey, we ought to write the family tree. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I draw up something. I put it on PowerPoint. She said, well, how am I going to do this? Well, PowerPoint, because I do PowerPoint at work. So that's easy. And that rough draft, and it was only about 4 pages long. It is now 53 pages big, but it's 3 pages. At that time, it was only 4 pages. And it was fortuitous. If I didn't record that, and if my dad didn't tell me that, oh yeah, put down here that our cousins Racho and our cousins Reclusado and all these others, and then, my uncle Alejandro and my other brothers and their sisters. So I wrote those down on a side. but Alejandro was there. If I had not caught that, how do I make that relationship work with the Kauai Ragsacs? Where if it's almost like Takeda, right? There's a lot of Takedas that are not related.
That's right. Correct.
Right? My theory is if you go back far enough, there's probably a province in Japan somewhere where one of the Takedas moved. Maybe it was a great-great-grandfather. And that's always possible. Especially if the name hasn't been changed, variations. And even then, at least, and here's one of those cases where when you try to do the family trees, when a lot of the Filipinos, when they got on board ship, they had to be a part of the manifest, right? So here's a Filipino trying to spell his name or say his name, and here's a white stevedore or a white merchant writing the name. So he may spell it phonetically. You pronounce it, it's close. But you look at it, it's not. But it's the same guy, same family. And those mistakes happen. And I've seen that when I've looked at the manifests. Now I look at the name, I say, gee, that's pretty close. Like Corpus. How do you spell Corpus? C-O-R-P-U-S. C-O-R-P-U-S-Z. But it's the same name when you pronounce it. But somebody can look at it and say, that's a different family. That's part of history detecting, by the way.